in the Iran-Iraq war, like it or not, Saddam Hussein was using poison gas to make up the deficit in fighting skills. The Persians were extremely committed in that war recently, but he used these, what now we consider to be discredited methods that supposedly triggered our entry into that area. And as you see, most of the fighting that's going on in Iraq, even though it's deadly and sad, is hit and run type fighting. It's like you put a car bomb along the road someplace, or you get a suicide bomber to do something. You're not having a pitched battle anywhere to speak of. Occasionally there's pitched battle. They don't last very long. So it's mostly this sort of hit and run guerrilla, if you want to call it that. I don't think it's guerrilla tactics. It's like, you know, mercurial sort of stuff. It is dangerous and lethal, but it's not war. It's more like assassination and terrorism than it is war. Americans just are unprepared for it. Americans can fight a regular war. They don't know how to deal with a thing like this, so it does wrong foot them, and they do look a little clumsy in this process. But unless the political will, it's not like the Vietnam War, where the Vietnamese actually could fight the Americans to a standstill in different areas. It's not anything like that. The only thing that will stop the Americans from staying there is the political will here in America, which is being undermined every single day on television, by the newspapers, by the publishers, and everyone else. That may produce a withdrawal and a defeat, but the Americans there's no way they can be defeated unless they defeat themselves, which is in fact what seems to be going on again, which is fine. That's up to the Americans. They want to defeat themselves. That's their own business. But the war they're fighting is not a war. It's a terrorist sort of pinprick kind of annoying thing. The Iraqis themselves are taking far more casualties as they slaughter each other. I read some guy was reporting on Charlie Rose last night saying there's something like 1,000 Iraqi casualties a week, not from the Americans, from the internecine fighting that's going on, assassinating, goon squads, everything else. That the hospitals, they don't even announce the numbers. They're so big. Oh well, forget all that. The point being, the war was carried out by these foreign groups. On the other side of it then, the Crusaders came in. They were a military order. And things really were shaken up tremendously. Now, just to come up to the modern period, I covered it, but I'll just cover it again. Some groups of Turkish tribes under Seljuk authority, as they had taken things over in the late 1000s, 1100s, further Turkish tribes were coming west, being pushed by the Mongols behind them. And most of them came from steppes of Central Asia, and they had to find a place to settle. So the Seljuks, who were in control in Baghdad, pushed these other tribes into Asia Minor, and they slowly made inroads into the Greek areas of Asia Minor in the wake of the failure of the Crusades. The Crusades were actually an attempt by the Byzantines to prop up these areas in Asia Minor and northern Syria. They failed. The Crusaders left, and so these Turkish tribes slowly pushed into Turkey. You see, we call this area Turkey, right? But you all know it wasn't Turkey back then. It was Greek. It was a Greco, you read your New Testament, Paul, he's traveling around a Hellenized Grecian area. And that's what it was until the period we're talking about, as the Byzantians began to slip after the Crusaders even attacked Constantinople and sacked it in the 1200s. By that time it was on its wobbly knees. And these tribes kept on pouring in, settling in. Today, Turkey is totally Muslim and absolutely Turkish. Now, I don't know if you did DNA tests how everything would come out there. Whether they would all look they came from Central Asia or they would look Greek, I don't know. You'd have to. That's what's so great about DNA. We now have a measure that we can go into place and see what really happened in this place, not what the history tells us. So I'm looking forward to seeing the results sometime of what the Asia Minor DNA test would come out and show. It would be interesting. But in any event, we know that it's a famous date in history. Constantinople finally fell to the Ottoman. They were called Osmanli. And late after that, they got a westernized sort of pronunciation, Ottoman Turks in 1453. And they made that their capital, and they changed the name from Stenopol to Istanbul, as I told you. And that became the center of another big empire that extended all the way around the Mediterranean, just like the Roman Empire had done previously, except it didn't get to Italy, just like the Alexander's Empire had done previously, just like the Byzantians had been previously. So the Turks did the same thing, making Byzantium, now Constantinople, then become Istanbul, their capital. And you can go to visit Istanbul. It's a beautiful, interesting city. They're trying to get in the common market today. But they took over all the areas around the coast and inland that we now call Arab areas, and North Africa, up to, I don't know, maybe as far as Tunis or so. And they were fought over the years by the Venetians, who were in competition for trade rights in the Mediterranean and so on. And this is the area where Venice is getting more and more powerful. And Venice had trading ports all over the islands in the eastern Mediterranean. So then you had all these various crusading orders that have been thrown out of Palestine that got into islands in the Mediterranean, Malta, the Knights of the Cross, St. John of the Cross in Malta, and different Christian unpaved roads. They retreated to those areas, and the Venetians were involved in that as the people who were involved in commerce. But the Ottoman Empire didn't really crack till the First World War. The British did disconnect Egypt from them in the 1880s, and they were not able to respond to that. There was also a Crimean War going on with the Russians in the 1850s, which weakened them also. So you had a lot of, you had Balkan wars going on. You had Greek national independent movements going on in the 1820s, in which Lord Byron lost his life as a romantic who had gone to fight for the Greeks. Didn't die fighting, he died of a disease he got somewhere. But I mean, all this was disconnecting areas of the Ottoman Empire from the Ottoman Empire. So it too was being pushed, narrowed. And the First World War was its death knell. With the First World War and T.E. Lawrence organizing some of the Arab tribesmen to help, Lawrence of Arabia, it's in the movie and so on, they were fighting the Turks there in Palestine, Syria, Transjordan, northern Arabia. But the main thing that happened was the real British push came from Egypt. A huge army, or a really tough army, under a general called Allenby. General Allenby